Srimad Bhagavatam. We welcome our YouTube Live, Facebook Live listeners today, and we'll start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Aradhya Bhagavan Brajesha Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Vakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumartho Maha Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatra Dharana Para Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Thank you very much everyone for joining. We'd like to announce our Facebook and YouTube participants of the quiz competition. On Facebook, it's Meena Mataji and Ranjani Gopika Mataji. And on YouTube is Janeshwar Gauranga Prabhu, Barsana Chitra Mataji, Shweta Manjiri Mataji, Geeta Varadarajan Mataji, Vrindavani Mataji, Rajeshwari Mataji, and Rekha Mataji. Thank you very much for participating in the quiz and your wonderful answers that you gave. Okay, so we start today with chapter 71 of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Lord travels to Indraprastha. This is a very, these three chapters culminate in such devotional prayers of the Lord that it's so wonderful to hear them. So Uddhava, in the previous chapter, he suggested to Lord Krishna. He understood Lord Krishna's inner desire, and he advises the Lord that King Yudhishthir must perform a Rajasuya sacrifice by conquering all the directions. Then King Yudhishthir will fulfill all his purposes. He will defeat Jarasandha. He will protect those who have taken your shelter and also execute Rajasuya Yagya. These are the three principal suggestions that Uddhava gave to Lord Krishna. And this way, the powerful enemy of the Yadavas, Jarasandha, 17 times he attacked, forced them to move from Mathura to Dwarka. That enemy will be destroyed. All the kings that he has imprisoned, 20,800 kings, will be released by this process. And all of the deeds will glorify Lord Krishna. So, King Jarasandha, he said further, if you want to kill Jarasandha, he can be killed only by Bhima. That is the reason why Krishna left him. Of course, the other reason was because he wanted Jarasandha to bring all the kings, all the bad kings with him. And all the good kings he had imprisoned. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam. That's why Krishna left Jarasandha, so he can bring all the dushkritina, all the bad kings, and Krishna can kill them. And then in the end, after he is killed, then he can deliver the kings who have surrendered to him and who have been imprisoned by Jarasandha. So he said Jarasandha can be killed only by Bhima. And because Jarasandha is very, very devoted to the Brahmanas, Bhima should disguise himself as a Brahmana, go to Jarasandha and beg for charity. Beg for charity of a fight. And then Bhima will defeat Jarasandha in your presence. When Krishna heard this, Narad Muni, Yadavas, all the elders, and Krishna himself, they started praising Uddhava's plan. Uddhava, awesome! Such a wonderful plan. And Krishna said, I will execute like you said. And he proceeded to mount his chariot and he went to Indraprastha along with his queens. So Krishna arrived in that city, and hearing of Krishna's arrival, Yudhishthir immediately came from his palace to greet Krishna. Yudhishthir, again and again, he started embracing Lord Krishna. And while embracing, he was losing his external consciousness out of ecstasy. And then Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadev, all the others, they embraced him. Some embraced him, some bowed down to him based on what was appropriate. Then when Lord Krishna greeted everyone, he entered the city with a fanfare, with like musical instruments glowing here, blowing there, trumpets, hymns were chanted in his glories. The women, they scattered flowers down from the rooftops. They remarked on the extreme good fortune of the queens. Look at the queens, they are so fortunate. Krishna's queens. So then Krishna entered the royal palace. He offered respects to Kunti Devi, who embraced Lord Krishna, who was her nephew. And then Draupadi, Subhadra, two queens of Arjuna, they offered obeisances to the Lord. Draupadi, for a long time, was the only queen. But Subhadra Devi, as arranged by Lord Krishna, got married, and she was the only one who was allowed to be in the palace along with Draupadi. Arjuna actually had inappropriately intervened when Yudhishthir and Draupadi were together. And he had to, because he had to get his Gandiva bow in the same room where Yudhishthir and Draupadi were. And so Arjuna was not supposed to go in, because they had 5 brothers. If one brother is with the queen, the others would not enter. But he had to. So he went to take the Gandiva bow, and because of that, that inappropriate behavior, he was asked to be banished from the kingdom. And the reason, Krishna said, very good. Arjuna, I'm banished from the kingdom. Krishna said, good, very good. This is Krishna. He loves when his devotees seek opportunity in obstacles. If not, he shows them, look, yes, you are banished. There is a great opportunity here. I want you to go into every kingdom and marry a queen in every city. Especially because that will build political ties with those kingdoms. So use this opportunity. Don't be depressed. Don't lament. Don't waste your time thinking, only if I wouldn't have gone in. What if I would have done this? Maybe I should have just knocked, maybe Gandiva bow. Why did I keep in that room? It was my fault. Stop wasting your time. Krishna is telling directly, use this. Go build ties for the kingdom. This is how we can do opportunity in obstacles. And in that, one of the queens that Arjuna was marrying, one of them was Subhadra. And then Krishna told Subhadra, you go with Arjuna into the palace. Arjuna took her, and Krishna instructed Subhadra, you have to be just like a maid servant of Draupadi, so that she accepts you, so that she doesn't feel threatened by your presence. You're a co-wife. None of the other queens Arjuna had brought to Hastinapur except Subhadra. Now this is a very unique combination, Subhadra Arjuna. Subhadra is none other than Yogamaya. In one sense, whereas Arjuna is a Jiva Tattva. He's a living entity being married to Vishnu Tattva in one sense, Radha Tattva, Yogamaya. So this is by Krishna's arrangement, all these things can happen. So Subhadra Devi offered the obeisances to the Lord, and Kunti Devi, the mother-in-law, requested, Draupadi, you should worship all the wives of Krishna. This is hospitality. Prabhupada would say, preaching means hospitality. When Prabhupada first started his Krishna consciousness in the matchless gifts, he would hold his classes Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And on the other days, he would go out in the Tompkins Square Park, and devotees would chant and dance, and then they would distribute flyers for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday programs. And when people would come, Srila Prabhupada would be so conscientious to serve them, to be so hospitable, so welcoming, so much respect. He would cook for them himself. Srila Prabhupada, at the age of 69 or more, he is cooking personally. For more than a year, he did that. And then he would make gulab jamuns, and then he would keep gulab jamuns at the exit and the entrance of the temple of the 26 2nd Avenue. And when people would go by, they would just drop a gulab jamun. Sugar bombs. They would call bullets, ISKCON bullets. And then they would go out and say, there's this amazing Swami and you must visit. And before you leave, don't forget that sugar syrup with sugar bombs. It just looks like a bomb. You put it in your mouth and it explodes inside your mouth. And Prabhupada would call them ISKCON bullets, because people would come to taste that and then get attracted to Krishna consciousness. But hospitality, Krishna consciousness is all about giving respect to others. Trinadapi sunichena, tarorapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena, kirtaniya sadahari. Give all respects to others, expect none in return. That is the definition of hospitality. Then Krishna gratified Yudhishthir by remaining there for some months. And during his stay, he strolled here and there. He would drive on chariots with Arjuna. Many warriors and soldiers would go along with him. And this ends chapter 71. We go to chapter 72, the slaying of demon Jarasandha. So since Krishna was staying for several months, one day Yudhishthir, he addressed Lord Krishna as he was sitting in the royal assembly. He said, "My dear Lord, I wish to perform a Rajasuya sacrifice. And the purpose I want to do it is because those who are not interested in your devotional service, they will be able to see firsthand the superiority of devotees, of your devotees, and the inferiority of the non-devotees. And they will also be able to see your lotus feet. So as a preaching exercise, I want to conduct this Rajasuya Yagya, where Krishna is in the center." If you see in Mahabharata, Krishna is always in the sidelines. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His devotees accept it. But it's not a story about Krishna. It's a story about the Kauravas and Pandavas. And Krishna is one of the persons who's mentioned there as the Supreme Personality. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is the center. And that is what the Rajasuya sacrifice Yudhishthir wanted to do. Now, remember, Krishna had this plan all along, because Uddhava had already suggested that he should perform Rajasuya Yagya. But when Krishna stayed there, he never suggested that. But he inspired his Paramatma within Yudhishthir's heart to say that. So here it says, so that devotees will be able to see firsthand. The verse in Srimad Bhagavatam says very clearly that, "Therefore, O Lord of the Lords, let people of this world see the power of your devotional service." Now, one thing we should understand, that here it says we should, the superiority of the devotees and the inferiority of the non-devotees. That's there. Yes, the devotees are superior because they have surrendered to Lord Krishna. But the devotees themselves should not feel that we are superior to the non-devotees. Srila Prabhupada was very, very clear about this, that we should not, a devotee should not think that we are better than a non-devotee. But we may say, well, I'm chanting 16 rounds. I'm following the 4 regulative principles. Am I not better than the drunkard on the street? No, I think I'm certainly better than them. Or those drug addicts, or those people who perform illicit sex. Am I not better than them? I don't do all these things. I'm certainly much better. I'm initiated. Am I not better than them? But we should consider, is this the consciousness of all the devotees? Is this the consciousness? Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, in the beginning, I am like a worm, worse than the worm in the stool. He's not just making an allegory. He actually means it from his heart. He feels that he is just worse than a worm in the stool, who is completely rejected and is just eating the refuse of the body. has no other better taste in life. We are worse than that? How is that possible? Here it says, I want to show how the devotees of Krishna are superior than the non-devotees. But a devotee of Krishna, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, I'm worse than the worm in the stool. That is, we should consider that. We should think like that. That's the humility of the soul. Naturally, that's the humility of the soul. That I am actually insignificant. It's just that we have not realized that. If we think we are significant, we have done something significant, that is a proof that actually we are insignificant. We are so insignificant that we don't even know that we are insignificant. And a devotee, pure devotee, they understand we are insignificant. But we don't say we are better than others, but we can say we are more fortunate than them. The only difference between a drunkard on the street and between a devotee who is chanting 16 rounds and following Srila Prabhupada's instructions is that we received the mercy. Mercy means something that we do not deserve. That mercy could have been given to the drunkard. The drunkard would have received that mercy. He would have been in this position. The only difference between us and them is that we have considered accepting the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, of Krishna. But that doesn't make us better, because mercy is something that we give to a beggar. And the beggar doesn't deserve it. We don't deserve it. So we should understand that we can think we are fortunate than them, but not better than them. Taddeva deva bhavatascharanaravinda sevanubhavamiha pashyatu loka esha ye tvam bhajanti na bhajantyuta vobhashya vobhayesham nishtham pradarshaya vibho kuru srinjayantam. Therefore, O Lord of Lords, let the people of this world see the power of devotional service rendered to your lotus feet. Please show them, O Almighty One, the position of those Kurus and Srinjayas who worship you, and the position of those who do not. Here we are seeing clearly the heart of a preacher. Yudhishthir Maharaj, he is imploring Lord Krishna, demonstrate. This is an opportunity to demonstrate the result of worshipping Krishna and also the result of not worshipping him. Because preaching by example is the best. Prabhupada would say, best preaching is a happy devotee. If we are happy and everyone around us see that we are always happy, then they also want to understand, how come you're so happy? That person doesn't even have to preach. His happiness, his being happy is preaching. Happy devotee. When we are chanting 16 rounds, when we are doing our sadhana properly, our seva properly, then we get that bliss from within, which shows out. That attracts people. That is the best preaching. So all these devotees who are truly practicing, they will be in the Rajasuya Yajna. And those who are not practicing will also be there. And so Yudhishthir Maharaj said, I'll have this Rajasuya Yajna for a platform for you to preach. So Yudhishthir Maharaj, as told by great authorities, is a pure devotee of the Lord. And his motivation in discharging his duties is just to establish the supremacy of Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna liked that proposition. He said, yes, your scheme is very excellent. And you know what? You are doing this to glorify me, but actually your fame will spread all throughout the universe. But Yudhishthir Maharaj didn't consider that. He said, all living beings should desire that this Rajasuya sacrifice must be performed. But before you perform the Rajasuya sacrifice, you will have to defeat all the kings of the earth and then collect all the necessary paraphernalia for this particular Rajasuya sacrifice. So Yudhishthir Maharaj was satisfied by Krishna's words, and he sent his brothers in different directions. Nakula, you go here. Sahadev, you go to Srinjaya. And Arjuna, you go here. Bhima, you go here. And then all his brothers conquered all the four directions and came back and gave him the report. Everyone on the earth is now conquered, except Jarasandha. Jarasandha could not be defeated. So then King Yudhishthir said, how can I defeat Jarasandha? Krishna said, I have a plan. Based on the advice of Uddhava, he said, Bhima, Arjuna, and myself, we should go as Brahmanas. So they disguised themselves as Brahmanas and went to the palace of Jarasandha, because Jarasandha was very, very devoted to the Brahminical class. So they introduced themselves, we are Brahmanas. They flattered him by praising his reputation, hospitality, and requested, please grant our desire. So text 21 of the 72nd chapter says, Harishchandro Ranti Deva Uncha Vritti Shibir Bali Vyadha Kapoto Bahavo Hyad Dhruvena Dhruvam Gata. Harishchandra, Ranti Dev, Uncha Vritti, Mudgala, Shivi, Bali, the legendary hunter, and the pigeon. And many others have attained the permanent by means of the impermanent. So they were trying to inspire King Jarasandha to perform charity. And they were glorifying him, and they said, charity to Brahmanas. Look, all these great kings, because of their charity, they became permanent using the impermanent. Because Jarasandha was a materialist, so you tell him do devotional service, he won't agree to it. But if we tell him that your name and fame will become permanent, your body will die, but your reputation will not die if you perform charity like these great kings. So Sridhar Swami, he briefly summarizes the history of these personalities that Krishna mentioned in this verse while glorifying King Jarasandha as a Brahmana when he was there. Harishchandra, he sold everything he had, including his wife, including his children, to pay off his debts to Vishwamitra. He even attained the status of a Chandala. Still, he did not become discouraged. Because of that persistence, he went to heaven along with the inhabitants of Ayodhya. Then he tells about Ranti Dev. Ranti Dev, he fasted for 48 days without even water, nothing. Somehow he obtained some food, some water after that fast. But then as he was about to eat, we saw this in the 9th canto. He was about to eat, some beggars came, so he gave it to them. And then in this way, he attained Brahmaloka. Mudgala. So these people, all of them, they attained the heavenly planets, if you see. And because Jarasandha was a materialist, he was telling, okay, from earth, at least go to the heavenly planets. Brahmaloka. Mudgala is another name of the king that was taken. He followed the practice of gathering grains that were left behind in the fields after the harvest. And he was very hospitable towards Atithi. Tithi means a date and a time. Atithi Means no date, no time. Uninvited guests, guests who come anytime. He was even hospitable to Atithi, to uninvited guests. Even though his family was suffering from poverty for 6 months, he still welcomed the uninvited guests. So he went to Brahmaloka. Then, to protect a pigeon who had taken his shelter, King Shibi, he gave his own flesh to the hawk. And because of that, he attained heaven. Bali Maharaj, he gave his all property to Lord Hari when the Lord disguised himself as Vamandev. And so Bali attained the Lord's personal association. Then in the end, in this verse, there is the name of a pigeon. This pigeon and his mate, they gave their own flesh to a hunter as a show of hospitality. You can see hospitality is so much glorified if we be hospitable to someone. That's the path to heavenly planets. That's the path even to the spiritual world, like Bali Maharaj. So because they sacrificed themselves for a hunter, they were taken to the heaven in a celestial airplane. When the hunter understood what these sacrifice, these pigeons have done for me, he also became renounced. He gave up hunting and went to perform severe austerities. And because he was freed from all sins, after his body was burned to death in a forest fire, he was elevated to the heavenly planets. So many, many personalities, they've attained enduring life of higher planets by means of the temporary material body. They used something temporary, this material body, and then they attained a permanent body in the spiritual world or in the heavenly planets. Heavenly planets is not permanent, but it's compared to the body on earth, it's long time. So in that sense, they tried to inspire his charitable disposition of Jarasandha. So Jarasandha was getting convinced, yes, what you're saying is right. But he also thought that from the sound of their voices, their physical stature, that he saw there was the arm marks of the bowstrings on the forearms. When you carry the bow, then the bowstrings on the forearms, there is some marks. And then Jarasandha could say, these are not Brahmanas, they are Kshatriyas. He said, I've seen them somewhere. Where have I seen them? I'm sure they are members of the royal order. Text 23 says, dressed as Brahmanas. But still, I must grant their request for charity, even if they beg me for my own body. And he said, yes, what they're saying is right. Bali Maharaj, his glories are heard throughout the world. Vishnu, he wanted to recover Indra's opulence from Bali. And he came as a Brahmana, made him fall down from his powerful position. But still, Bali gave Vishnu the whole earth in charity. What is the use of being an unqualified Kshatriya who goes on living but fails to gain everlasting glory by working with this perishable body for the benefit of the Brahmanas? So then Shukadev Goswami, he's telling, in this way, Jarasandha made up his mind and he addressed Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhima. O learned Brahmanas, choose whatever you wish. I'll give it to you, even if I have to give my own head. So Krishna, who was in the form of a Brahmana, he said, O king, give us a battle in the form of a duel, if you think it fitting. And then he removes his cloak. He says, we are princes and we have come to beg for a fight. We have no other request to make of you. So then Lord Krishna, he discarded his disguise, and then he asked Jarasandha, fight me in one-to-one combat. Krishna first asked him, but Jarasandha refused. He said, Krishna, you once fled the battlefield, so I will not fight you. Then he said, Arjuna, I will not fight you either, because you are younger to me in age and you are also inferior in size. But Bhima, you are a worthy opponent. Let's fight. So Jarasandha handed Bhima a club, and he took another club, and they went outside the city to begin the fight. They were, text 37 says, they swung their clubs at each other with such speed and force that as the clubs, they struck their shoulders, their hips, their feet, their hands, thighs, collarbones. The weapons themselves, the club themselves became crushed and broken like the branch of the arka trees with which two enraged elephants furiously attack each other. So their clubs were ruined. So these great heroes, they started hitting them with iron hard fists. And as they slapped each other and hit each other, this sound was resembling like the crash of elephants who are colliding, or like harsh thunderclaps. So after the fight went on for some time, it became clear that the two opponents, they were equally matched, either gain victory. So then Krishna got the attention of Bhima. He split a small tree branch in half and then threw the two twigs, two pieces, and Bhima understood. He threw Jarasandha to the ground. He stepped on one of his legs. He seized the other one of his arms and proceeded to tear him apart from his genitals to his head, because he was Jarasandha. He was joined by the witch named Jara from the middle. So you could tear him apart from the middle. But as this is, and then what I'm about to say is not in Srimad Bhagavatam, but in Mahabharata, it says that as he was moved apart, he would join again. And then Bhima would move him apart again. He would join again. And then Bhima looked at Krishna, what's wrong? And so Krishna he tore apart the twig, and then he threw in different directions so that they don't join together. And so Bhima again ripped him apart and threw in different directions. And that was the end of Jarasandha. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Now when Jarasandha was dead, all his relatives and subjects, they started crying out in lamentation. And then Krishna appointed Jarasandha's son. His name was Sahadev, the ruler of Magadha. He became the Magad Raj, and he released the kings that Jarasandha had imprisoned. That brings us to chapter 73. The Lord Krishna blesses the liberated kings. When Lord Krishna, he freed the 20,800 kings that Jarasandha had imprisoned, all of these kings immediately fell to the ground to pay his obeisances. And they stood with joined hands. And they began to pray. They said, actually, this imprisonment was so torturous, but it was an act of mercy by you to smash our false pride. Kings, they prayed, please, we prayed to give us only those things that would facilitate our perpetual remembrance of your lotus feet. Text 8, the king said, obeisances to you, O Lord of the ruling demigods, O destroyer of your surrendered devotees' distress. Since we have surrendered to you, O inexhaustible Krishna, please save us from this terrible material life which has made us so despondent. O Master Madhusudana, we do not blame this king of Magadha. since it is actually by your mercy that kings fall from their royal position, O Almighty Lord. This, anyone who is attached to a position must always remember this and pray these prayers. How they are not blaming anyone else. They are saying, it is your mercy that you pulled me down from this particular position. Infatuated with his opulence and ruling power, a king loses all self-restraint and cannot obtain his true welfare. Thus, bewildered by your illusory energy, he imagines his temporary assets to be permanent. Just as men of childish intelligence consider a mirage in the desert to be a pond of water, so those who are irrational look upon the illusory transformations of Maya as substantial. What to talk about us? Previously, we were blinded by the intoxication of riches. We wanted to conquer this earth. We fought one another to gain victory. Mercilessly, we were harassing our own subjects. We disregarded you arrogantly. O Lord, who stood before us as death. But now, Krishna, this power, that powerful form of yours called time, moving mysteriously, irresistibly, has deprived us of all our opulences. Now that you have mercifully destroyed our pride, we beg simply to remember your lotus feet. They didn't ask their kingdom back, even though they were given. They said, more valuable than that is to simply remember your lotus feet. Never again will we hanker for a mirage-like kingdom, a kingdom that must be slavishly served by this mortal body, which is simply a source of disease. And then they said, disease, suffering, which is declining at every moment. Nor, O Almighty Lord, will we hanker to enjoy the heavenly fruits of the pious works in the next life, since the promise of such rewards is simply an empty enticement for the ears. Please tell us how we may constantly remember your lotus feet, though we continue in the cycle of birth and death in this world. This is their question. After they're released, their question is, please tell us how we can serve, how we can constantly remember you. Again and again we offer obeisances to you, O Lord, O Govinda, who vanquishes the suffering of all who surrender to him. So Shukadeva Goswami said, now because they were kings, they were freed from bondage, they glorified the Supreme Lord. And then Krishna spoke in a very gentle voice. Krishna said, from now on, my dear kings, you will have firm devotion to me, the Supreme Self, and the Lord of all that be. I assure you, this will come to pass just as you desire. So based, ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. As you surrender unto me, I reciprocate. Based on your desire, I will reciprocate. What's your desire? You want to remember me constantly? I will give you that remembrance. Fortunately, you have come to the proper conclusion. And what you have spoken is absolutely true. I can see human beings, they have lack of self-restraint. And that is because of their intoxication with opulence and power. They cannot control themselves. And that's simply, they become mad. It leads to madness. Total madness. Even they don't know what they are doing. Even they don't know how they are harming themselves. They don't know how they are putting themselves in the place of harm. Just so, and it arises, this lack of self-restraint arises from intoxication of power and opulence. Then he says, text 20, Haihaya, Nahusha, Vena, Ravana, Naraka, and many other rulers of demigods, men and demons, fell from their elevated positions because of infatuation with material opulence. So what is the way around it? The way around it is to be in the mood of service, not be attached to position, but view this position to serve. How can I serve? So Sridhar Swami again describes, who is Haya, Nahusha, Vena? We all read about them in the previous canto, so this is a bit of a revision. Sridhar Swami says, Haya, he stole the desire cow of Lord Parshuram's father Jamadagni, Kamadhenu. And so Parshuram killed him and the sons of Haya. Nahusha became puffed up and he temporarily assumed the form of Indra. And then out of pride, Nahusha ordered some of the Brahmanas to carry him in a palanquin to an illicit meeting with Lord Indra's chaste wife Sachi. And so the Brahmana cursed him and made him fall down from his position to become an old man. Similarly, King Vena, he was similarly mad and he insulted the Brahmanas. They killed him by loud incantations of the syllable hum. Hum. This can kill a person. Ravana was a famous ruler of the Rakshasas. We all know about Ravana, but out of lust, he kidnapped Mother Sita. And so her husband, Lord Ramachandra, killed him. And then he mentions about Narakasura. Naraka was a ruler of the Daityas who dared to steal Mother Aditi's earrings. We just heard this past time. And for that offense also he was killed. Krishna just killed his son Narakasura, and now he's giving his example. Thus, throughout history, powerful leaders, they've fallen from their positions because they became intoxicated from their so-called opulence. So he gave them 3 instructions. Understanding that this material body and everything connected with it have a beginning and end. Worship me with Vedic sacrifices and with clear intelligence. Protect your subjects in accordance with the principles of religion. Text 22, as you live your lives, begetting generations of progeny and encountering happiness and distress, birth and death, always keep your minds fixed on me. This is an instruction of the Lord. This is not from Bhagavad Gita. It's the same instruction, but it is to the kings. Do your duties, but always keep me in your mind. How do we keep Krishna in mind? By chanting, by remembering his glories. What we are doing right now is, if throughout the day we meditate on what we heard and read today, we can keep our mind fixed on him. Be detached from the body and everything connected to it, remaining self-satisfied, steadfastly keep your vows while concentrating your minds fully on me. We should be in a samadhi of thinking of Krishna while doing our duties. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, you should, or I think Raghunath Das Goswami, that when you go back to your house, because Raghunath Das Goswami wanted to leave everything. His parents were really, really big Mazumdars and Zamindars. And he wanted to surrender to Lord Chaitanya completely, give up his family life. He had a beautiful wife, but he had no interest. On the night of the marriage, he left, came to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu said, no, you go back. Because his parents were devotees. Still he wanted to be a renunciant. He said, go back and do your duties. Do your duties just as a lady performs the duties while thinking of her paramour. So we should think that should perform the duty so perfectly, but we are thinking of Krishna in our mind. But we don't let people know that we are thinking of Krishna. And because we don't want people to know that we are thinking of Krishna, we do our duties perfectly, so they don't doubt that we are actually thinking of Krishna. But we are thinking of Krishna. So in this way, steadfastly keep your vows while concentrating your minds fully on me. In this way, you will attain me, the Supreme Lord. So in this way, Krishna then saw to it that those kings were properly fed, because they were just released. They were properly bathed and dressed, and he had Sahadev, the newly adorned king, offered them flower garlands, sandalwood pulp, clothing, so many other things. And then after he adorned them with jewels and golden ornaments, he seated them on chariots and sent them off to their respective kingdom. And in this way, based on the instructions that they were given by Lord Krishna, they carried out their various duties once again. And then Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna, they departed for Indraprastha. They met King Yudhishthir and related to him everything that happened. And so the final chapter, Nishamya Dharmarajastat Keshavenanukampitam Anandashru Kalam Munchan Premna Novacha Kinchana. Upon hearing their account of the great favor Lord Keshava had mercifully shown him, King Dharmaraj shed tears of ecstasy. He felt such love that he could not say anything. So how Yudhishthir Maharaj is feeling those tears of ecstasy? He's a pure devotee. He's feeling those tears of ecstasy out of love. So we'll end today with some beautiful prayers of Draupadi, adapted from Mahabharata, when she was being disrobed. And these are prayers of surrender, inspired by the kings who surrendered to Krishna. Similarly, Draupadi also surrendered. Govinda Dwarakavasi Krishna Gopi Jana Priya Kauravai Paribhutam Mam Kim na janasi Keshava He Nath He Ramanatha Vrajanathartinashana Kairavarnava Bhagnam Mam Uddhara Swajanardana Krishna Krishna Mahayogi Vishvatman Vishvabhavana Prapannam Pahi Govinda Kuru Madhye Avasidatim. O Govinda, O resident of Dwarka, O Krishna, O Lord dear to the gopis, do not recognize your own devotee. Do you not recognize your own devotee affected by a severe disease? O Lord, O Master of Lakshmi, O Lord of Vraja, destroyer of all suffering, O Janardana, please protect this particular servant of yours who is plunged in an ocean of difficulties. Krishna, Krishna, Mahayogi, O greatest mystic of the yogis, among mystic yogis, O super soul of the universe, O origin of the universe, please rescue your surrendered devotee who is experiencing great difficulty. With humble heart, understanding we are not qualified to even pray, but having hope in the mercy of the Lord, in the kindness of the Lord, we are begging, please. We don't deserve it. That's why we are begging. But we really want it. We made a mistake. Please remove us from this mistake of coming to this material world. Please rescue us. from this great difficulty. This is how Draupadi prayed in Mahabharata, and then Krishna arrived and he protected her dignity and her devotion to Krishna. So with this, we will end today. If there are any questions or comments, we can take now, and we'll also discuss the quiz questions. So we have 12 questions today. First, what was Uddhava's counsel to Krishna's question? Second, why was Bhima chosen to kill Jarasandha? Third, what was Bhima advised to disguise as to kill Jarasandha, and why? Srila Prabhupada says preaching means dash. Fifth, who all went to kill Jarasandha? Sixth, what is the meaning of Atithi? Seventh, which king protected a pigeon? Eighth, how did Krishna hint Bhima to kill Jarasandha? Ninth, who became the ruler of Magadha after Jarasandha was killed? 10th, what was the question by the kings after they were released? 11th, what are the three instructions Krishna gives to the kings? 12th, who were Haihaya, Nahusha, Vena, and how did they fall down? So with this, we end here. There is a question by Trilokini Sakhi Mataji. Would you please explain why Lord Krishna disguised himself as a Brahmana before Jarasandha? Yes, very good question. This is described in Srimad Bhagavatam itself, where it says, because Jarasandha loved Brahmanas, he would respect Brahmanas, he would give charity to the Brahmanas. So they came as Brahmanas if they would have come as Kshatriyas and fight Jarasandha, he probably may have brought his whole army and they would have still defeated him, but it would have been a roundabout way. So they said, let's go as Brahmanas. And Krishna kind of spoke to his materialistic desire of charity. Of charity to gain some higher material gain of the heavenly planets. He was doing charity in the mode of passion, even though he would love to give charity to the Brahmanas. So Krishna wanted to exploit that impurity in him of charity in the mode of passion. And he said he came as Brahmana so that he can give charity of fight to them in that way. So I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions or comments? Let's see. Okay, there is Prem Vikas Prabhu. Can you please let us know where we can find these prayers? These prayers you can find in the it is actually from Mahabharata, Sabha Parva, chapter 68. So, yeah, why don't you go get Mahabharata, go look at the chapter 68 of Sabha Parva. You'll get... I'm just kidding. We can share this prayer in the WhatsApp group along with the translation. So thank you for asking this question. Okay, any other questions? All right. If not, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.